What I'm going to do is go through a quick 20 minutes to bring you up to speed. Some of these have been going on a little while for the slides. I apologise about that, but unfortunately, so has NDC. It has been going on for, it appears, ages and ages. What I am looking forward to is 2020, where I think we are going to start to make some real headway, and we will start talking a little bit less about the technology, and we'll start talking about how you can use NDC to improve the industry and improve airlines' revenue. Sometimes there is a lot of tension around. When I was down in Australia halfway through the year, a lot of tension in that market there between the agents, the corporates, and the airlines. And some of that is because there's been this expectation of people talking about commercially how can NDC work, but the basics of the technology isn't there in place yet. And that's what's causing some of the tension. So what I thought I'd do is talk a little bit about both of those. The other thing I want to do, and I'm as guilty as anyone, is it's very easy for us to say, you know, the current system, it's really good, it works. There's things that it can't do with NDC Edifact. And the basic schemas, you know, they're not really fit for business. But there's been this huge amount of work that's been going on. So 17.2, for if people are not sure how the IATA schemas work, 17.2 is the baseline schema that IATA have adopted. And it's got all of these functionalities. And I'm not going to go through these slides, don't worry about that. But what I did want to just show was the sort of work that's been going on for each of the schemas. There's 2 published every year. 18 is the year, 19 is the year, and then .1 and .2 for the first half of the year and for the second half of the year. So that's what's happening. And you can see that there's these IATA working groups that have been going, yeah, this functionality is missing in the schema. That's what we need to put in there. And this is these are, you know, what's gone on into all the subsequent schemas. Part of the problem is most of the airlines are connected to either 17.2 or 18.1, and they haven't adopted all of the improvements that are going forward. So it's not until you start perhaps bringing in the next baseline schema as 20.2 or 21.1 or whenever it's going to be when you get that. But you can see 19.2 that's just been released got a huge amount of improvements, a lot around servicing. So where people were saying the schemas, yeah, they're not fit for business, a lot of agents have said that, a huge amount of work gone on in improving those. And you can, oh, I thought I had a 20, and 20.1, you can see that for the first quarter of next year or the first half of next year, again, a huge amount has been proposed that's going on. All of that work's happening at the moment. So that's, you know, really good. Part of the problem, especially for us as a GDS, is that the way that you augment that is there's no standard practice. So as with a lot of the schemas is, you know, are they standard, are they not? And we are finding that about 80% is a standard schema. It's a pattern. You can copy and paste it from one airline to another. And then there's about 20% that there isn't. And that's what takes a lot of work. Also, if an airline, some of those enhancements are regulatory, like Indian GST tax, you know, they have to be adopted. Some of them are just there because they're servicing, they're nice to do, they're what the industry needs. But there is no standard of getting those back into the schema. So we are going to live for quite a while in a bit of a messy situation. On the commercial side, which is what I'm really looking forward to moving to for next year, is really, for me, it's about the capabilities. It's how do we improve this industry? I have a background of an airline sales capability, and that's what I would look forward to on this, is how can you use these to improve the revenue of an airline? But also, you can turn it on the head, and you can say, how do agents use this to improve their revenue? How can they start doing things differently? These have been the standard ones that I've been talking about for at least the last year, if not 2 years. They've been accepted by the whole industry as like the main ones that are important and that the airlines are looking at using. Know the customer at the time of search. So with the NDC, the booking's going to be made in the airline system, not in the GDS system. I'm talking about third-party bookings made through agents. So they know who it is, so they can return an appropriate offer. That's the plan. Fares to offers. Airlines want to increase their ancillary sales. But at the moment, with EMDs, 2 swipes of credit cards, things like that, the old practices that are still there until you get one order, then the best way, easiest way for airlines to increase their ancillary sales, that revenue that they really want, because they make a lot of profit on them, is to increase their offers that they're making through their fares. So you start selling more and more fare families, and I've got some examples of that. This is a really busy slide, but it's a good example, again, in that you've got the fare at the top of the box, of the blue box, and then you've got all of the things that you can add on to that. And we're talking to airlines that are saying, we're going to put together about 15 to 20 different fare families. They're going to have those on their shelf. When the customer makes a request, then they will return 3 or 4 that they think are the most appropriate. So they're not looking at putting 15 or 20 fare families or offers out back to the customer. They're going to put what they think are the best 3 or 4. And that's how they're going to do it to start with. So people talk about personalization, but to start with, it's going to be in a limited way. It isn't going to be building an offer from scratch. They will have those on the shelves. The other ones that airlines are looking at doing a lot around is dynamic pricing, smoothing the pricing curve, moving beyond the 26 fare buckets that the industry uses today. And you can see that if you can do that, then there's a lot of way that the airlines can make more and more revenue. And most of the airlines we're talking to think that they can make between 1% and 4% by having these additional fare points in place. They also become a lot more competitive against the low-cost carriers. That's really important in Europe and in Southeast Asia, where you've got a lot of competition with the low-cost carriers. And then personalization, differentiation. A lot of the airlines don't like talking about differentiation because that's where they're going to start treating different customers and different agents differently. I'm sure it's going to happen. No one's really prepared to stand on stage and talk about that. Are they going to go to Amex? You're not going to get as good fares as BCD or not. But they have that ability because they know it's Amex that's making that request at the time. Then they can return a fare for Amex. Then they know it's BCD and their customers, and they can return those fares. Will they be exactly the same? I don't know. If one supports the airline a lot more than the other, then why should they be the same? That's me with my old airline hat on. So we will see where that goes. That's the things that I'm looking forward to next year, because as we start getting these things happening live in the marketplace, we can monitor them, we can track them, we can see what's happening, and I look forward to coming back onto this stage to tell you about them and give you some real results. And the other thing that's going to be really interesting, and this is going to be a learning curve as well, is that the airlines are they're moving into personalization, they're moving into retailing, and either us on our front end, the GDSs with their front ends, or the agents direct, if they're taking the feed from us or they're having a direct link into an airline, they've got to start building their own retailing platform. And you've got these more and more complicated offers coming out. How are you going to demonstrate those? How are you going to pass that information on to the end customer to make a decision? At the same time, when the screen size is getting smaller and smaller, and the most common screen size is going to be a mobile. So this is going to be really complicated. It isn't easy. And the other thing is, there are not many, if any, real retailing experts in the aviation industry. And so the airlines and themselves and the agents have got to bring those expertise into the industry so that we can know and learn from other companies that have been doing this. How do you do this in a really good, effective manner? It's very important for the airlines that we can demonstrate what their products are, how you can get the sales up to the next fare classes, etc., etc. But how do you do that in a cost-effective manner and in a manner that the end customer wants and likes to see? So we're going to see a lot of that happening at the moment, going into next year and beyond. What's happening in the market at the moment? You're hearing a lot of this. You've got the airlines are saying we're going to do these offers. They're looking at growing ancillaries. they're all talking about these additional pricing points. They want to be dynamic, they want to be quicker, they want to be a lot more nimble on their feet. And you're going to see the start of personalisation. But you're not going to see it down to an Ian Heywood level. You may see it down to Ian Heywood books through ATP level. You may see it Ian Heywood as a Travelport. You may see it as Ian Heywood as a Gold Card member on British Airways level. But you're not going to see it down to the individual person, not next year. But that will come at some time. Carrots and sticks. So Lufthansa knows all about sticks, not so much about the carrot side. What we've got here is the airlines are using the carrots and sticks to encourage, I love that word, encourage, they're using them to encourage the agents to book through the NDC channel. I'll show on the next slide why that's really important. But how are they doing that? Well, they're surcharging, removing content from ATP Co, Edifax, and they're only making some fares available within the NDC channel. Now, to be fair to the airlines, some fares can only be made available into the NDC channel. So if they're beyond the 26 booking classes, if they are more and more fare families, etc., you can only distribute those via the API because the ATP Edifax doesn't have the capability to do that. But you're going to see a lot more of this. Why are we going to see a lot more of this? Well, we are still, despite what some airlines are saying, we are still right on the left-hand side of this. This is third-party distribution, via travel agents of an airline's content. And the airlines want to move to the right-hand side. The reason they want to move to the right-hand side is that they want to use all of those sales capabilities that I was talking about. And you can only use those sales capabilities if the booking comes through an NDC API. So that is why they're trying to drive that adoption down the NDC. So you're seeing that the airlines will want to drive that. The problem that you've got at the moment is that there's a bit of cart before the horse, because some of the airlines are taking those actions, removing content, surcharging, before the basic technology is in place. And so a lot of agents are struggling to get access to the NDC content because they can't get it through their method of choice, which is normally a GDS, or if they do go are to an airline, a lot of their bookings are not, their booking engines are not fit for business, etc. And so all of those are being smoothed out. They are all starting to go away. Travelport ourselves, we are live with Qantas, we're live with a European group. We're going to be live with a couple of American airlines by the end of the year, etc. So it's all happening, and the capability of our endpoints is getting better. And it's the same with my competitors as well. I'm not up here to do a sales pitch for Travelport. It's the same with our competitors, and the airlines are getting more sophisticated in what they can do as well. So the technology is starting to be where I thought it would have been about a year ago. But in the first quarter of next year, I think you'll see that that's going to be less of an inhibitor. My final slide. So what do I think is going to happen? What you are going to see is that the leading airlines and the GDSs will be connected up. We will be distributing that content. It will start to make it a lot easier for the agents to access it. The technology becomes less of an inhibitor, and then the industry starts concentrating more on how do you make these sales capabilities work, how do you start increasing your revenue. We're talking to a lot of airlines. We're talking to about 40 airlines at the moment, and there's more and more that are looking at their NDC ambitions, and they will come perhaps more public. But also, when you hear the leading airlines start saying, yes, by smoothing out the booking curve, I've managed to increase my revenue by 2%, I'll become more effective against the low-cost carriers. When you can say, hey, I've just really increased my ancillary bookings by 10% because I'm selling more fare families, then the airlines that don't have NDC capability will be going, I need that. And that is something that I predict will happen in the next couple of years. There's a long lead time for an airline to come live with NDC, but that's what I think you'll see. So you're going to get more and more airlines there. Agents and corporates, I haven't spoken too much about them in this because I'm limited for time, but what you'll see there is that the agents and the corporates are starting to talk to the airlines and say, hey, you've got these capabilities. Yes, you can differentiate content. Yes, you can personalize it. How can we work together? And we're working with a few corporates now and the agents and the airlines to say, right, can we do some trials? Can you now prove that by personalizing an offer for me, we will actually be able to, it will be beneficial for me as a corporation. So it's starting to become what's the proof of the pudding as we move forward. And then finally, you're going to see more sticks and carrots. As the technology's in place, the airlines, for the reasons that I've explained, will need to drive more and more bookings down the NDC path. They've spent millions. Everyone in the industry is spending millions and millions, and so they will want to see more and more bookings coming down that pipeline when they're convinced that the technology is robust enough and it can handle it, etc., etc. And I think you'll start seeing some of that in 2020. You'll see a lot more of it in 2021.